Imagine a border that stretches more than 2,600 kilometers, carved during colonial times, running through rugged mountains and tribal lands where allegiances shift, militants slip across under the radar, and two neighboring states, once allies, now adversaries, face off with accusations, airstrikes, and heavy weaponry. This is the story of the fragile frontier between Afghanistan and Pakistan, the role of the Taliban in Kabul and Islamabad's enduring security concerns, the roots of a conflict that seems to resurface again and again, and why what happens here matters for the region and beyond. In this deep dive, we'll trace how the conflict started, the events that brought it to the brink, what the Taliban stand to gain or lose, how Pakistan's government has responded, the border disputes that underpin much of the friction, and what is likely to unfold next. The conflict between Afghanistan and Pakistan is not new. It's the continuation of historical wounds that never healed. It began with the creation of the Durand Line in 1893, drawn by British India and the Afghan ruler Amir Abdur Rahman Khan, cutting through Pashtun tribal lands. When Pakistan was created in 1947, Afghanistan became the only country to vote against its admission to the United Nations, disputing that inherited colonial border. For Afghanistan, the Durand Line was an unjust division of their ethnic heartland. For Pakistan, it was an international boundary recognized by the world. That disagreement became the fault line upon which decades of mistrust, proxy wars, and militant insurgencies were built. In the 1950s, tensions escalated when Afghanistan protested Pakistan's consolidation of its tribal territories. Riots erupted in Kabul and the Pakistani embassy was attacked. Skirmishes flared across the rugged frontier. But the deeper animosity grew from identity itself. Millions of Pashtuns found themselves divided, neither fully Pakistani nor fully Afghan in the eyes of the state. As the Cold War intensified, Afghanistan aligned more with the Soviet Union, while Pakistan leaned toward the West, particularly the United States. When the Soviets invaded Afghanistan in 1979, Pakistan became the main staging ground for US-backed Mujahideen fighters, funneling weapons and money through its intelligence service, the ISI. That war not only bled the Soviets but also militarized the borderlands, creating a generation of fighters who would later evolve into the Taliban. By the 1990s, when the Taliban emerged in Afghanistan, Pakistan saw them as a strategic asset, a way to ensure strategic depth against India. The Taliban's rise was initially welcomed in Islamabad, but after the 9/11 attacks in 2001, everything changed. The US invaded Afghanistan, the Taliban were toppled, and Pakistan found itself in a paradoxical position. Officially allied with the United States in the war on terror, while covertly maintaining links with Taliban factions. The border, always porous, became a battlefield. Refugees, weapons, and fighters flowed both ways. When the US withdrew in 2014 and the Taliban regained ground, Pakistan expected that a friendly government in Kabul would follow its lead. But when the Taliban took full control in August 2021, the relationship soured instead of stabilizing. Pakistan soon accused the Taliban regime of harboring the Taliban Pakistan, TTP, a militant group ideologically aligned with the Taliban, but responsible for deadly attacks inside Pakistan. The TTP pledged allegiance to the Taliban's supreme leader in 2021, and Pakistan's security agencies saw that as a direct threat. From Islamabad's perspective, Afghanistan had become a sanctuary for those killing Pakistani soldiers and civilians. From Kabul's view, Pakistan was using the TTP issue as an excuse to interfere in Afghan sovereignty. By 2024 and 2025, the border had become a live war zone. Pakistani fighter jets conducted airstrikes in Afghanistan's coast, Jalalabad, and Paktika provinces, claiming to target TTP strongholds and leaders like Nur Wali Masood. Afghanistan accused Pakistan of violating its sovereignty, citing over 1,000 border breaches and hundreds of airspace incursions. The Taliban retaliated with cross-border mortar and rocket fire, leading to casualties on both sides. For the first time in decades, the conflict had shifted from a proxy war to direct state-on-state confrontation. The situation was a bitter irony. Pakistan had once nurtured the Taliban as allies. Now it faced them as adversaries. For the Taliban, Pakistan's airstrikes and accusations were an affront to their victory narrative. They saw themselves as independent rulers, not puppets. But the reality was more complicated. Afghanistan's economy was collapsing, international recognition was minimal, and trade routes through Pakistan were their lifeline. The Taliban could not afford an all-out war with Islamabad, yet they also couldn't appear weak in front of their own people or the militant factions within their borders. For Pakistan, the calculus was equally complex. The rise in TTP attacks inside its territory, over 2,400 deaths in the first 3 quarters of 2025, put immense pressure on its military and government. Pakistan's economy was reeling, inflation was high, and political instability deepened. The military leadership saw the cross-border militant threat as existential. Every attack undermined the army's reputation as the ultimate guardian of national security. When diplomacy failed, Pakistan turned to force. But striking inside Afghanistan risked not only retaliation from the Taliban, but also international condemnation. This escalating cycle has deep roots in how past administrations handled the problem, or failed to. Pakistan's previous governments tried to manage the frontier through a mix of military operations, negotiations, and border fencing. Operations like Zarb-e-Azimi cleared militant strongholds in tribal areas, but pushed many fighters into Afghanistan, where they regrouped. Pakistan then began fencing the entire Durand Line to stop infiltration, a move the Afghan side consistently protested as a violation of sovereignty. Afghan governments before 2021, weak and dependent on international aid, could not control the border either. They blamed Pakistan for supporting insurgents, while Pakistan accused them of harboring terrorists. It became a cycle of blame without resolution. When the Taliban regained Kabul, Pakistan believed the problem was finally over. Instead, it worsened. The Taliban's ideological sympathy with the TTP, coupled with their need to maintain unity among various militant factions, prevented them from taking decisive action against Pakistani insurgents. For Pakistan, this was a betrayal. The military leadership, long used to influencing Kabul through intermediaries, suddenly found itself without leverage. The Taliban no longer needed Pakistan's protection or recognition as much as before. They wanted to assert Afghan independence, and resisting Pakistani pressure became a way to do that. The problem escalated to military involvement because both sides ran out of political options. Pakistan's civilian government is weak, and its military dominates decision-making. For generals in Rawalpindi, every militant attack on Pakistani soil demands a show of strength. For the Taliban, every strike inside Afghan territory demands a show of defiance. The border, once a shadow battlefield of intelligence games, has become an open stage for national pride. The deeper problem lies in the unresolved status of the Durand Line. Afghanistan has never officially recognized it as an international border, arguing that it was imposed under duress and divides Pashtun tribes. Pakistan, on the other hand, treats it as permanent and non-negotiable. When Pakistan builds border posts or extends fencing, clashes erupt. The Torkham and Chaman crossings, vital arteries for trade, have been shut multiple times after firefights. In February 2025, the closure of Torkham for almost a month disrupted over $1.6 billion in trade. For a landlocked Afghanistan already crippled by sanctions, that was devastating. The humanitarian dimension is often overlooked. Afghanistan depends heavily on Pakistan for imports, food, fuel, and medical supplies. When borders close, prices skyrocket and aid convoys stall. Meanwhile, Pakistan hosts millions of Afghan refugees, people who fled decades of war and poverty. Renewed fighting risks another wave of displacement, something Pakistan's struggling economy can hardly afford. Yet both sides continue to harden their positions, their populations caught in the middle. Looking at the larger picture, the Afghanistan-Pakistan conflict is not merely bilateral, it is regional. India watches closely as instability in Afghanistan indirectly weakens Pakistan. China, heavily invested in Pakistan's infrastructure through the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPC, fears any spillover that could threaten its projects or its interests in Central Asia. Iran, sharing borders with both states, also monitors developments with caution. The United States and Western powers, having withdrawn from Afghanistan, now see the growing tensions as another sign of how fragile the post-withdrawal order truly is. The Taliban face an uncertain path ahead. If they crack down on the TTP, they risk alienating militants and factions inside Afghanistan. If they don't, they invite Pakistani strikes and international isolation. Their claim to sovereignty depends on controlling their territory, something increasingly tested by Pakistan's cross-border operations. For Pakistan, the danger is a prolonged low-intensity war that drains resources, damages its global reputation, and deepens internal instability. Both sides know they cannot afford full-scale conflict. In October 2025, after weeks of deadly exchanges, Afghanistan and Pakistan held peace talks in Doha and agreed to a ceasefire with follow-up meetings planned in Istanbul. But ceasefires have come and gone before, without addressing the structural causes, the militant sanctuaries, the contested border, and the lack of mutual trust. The peace is likely to remain fragile. The border dispute remains the key. The Durand Line is more than a line, it's the living wound of colonial history, a reminder of how arbitrary borders can ignite generations of conflict. Both governments use it for domestic legitimacy. The Taliban frame it as a question of Afghan pride, while Pakistan presents it as a matter of national security. Until they reconcile their versions of history, the mountains will continue to echo with artillery. Going forward, there are three possible outcomes. First, de-escalation through diplomacy. If both governments realize that continued fighting will only strengthen militant groups, they might cooperate on border management and trade normalization. Second, a cycle of flare-ups and truces. This is the most likely path, with each side periodically trading fire before returning to talks. Third, a major escalation, a large-scale TTP attack in Pakistan, or another Pakistani strike deep inside Afghanistan could trigger open warfare. For the Taliban, success means maintaining control, preventing internal dissent, and showing they can govern responsibly. For Pakistan, success means eliminating the TTP threat without collapsing the fragile relationship with Kabul. But the margin for error is razor thin. The wrong move could set the entire border aflame, with consequences that ripple far beyond South Asia. In the end, the frontier between Afghanistan and Pakistan is more than just an imaginary line on a map. It is a mirror reflecting decades of unresolved history, militant networks, strategic rivalry, tribal loyalties, and state fragility. As the Taliban rule in Kabul and Pakistan's military grapples with cross-border attacks and domestic instability, the pressure is mounting and the stakes are high. Whether diplomacy holds or guns speak, the outcome will matter for millions of lives, for regional geopolitics, and for the broader fight against militant terror. If you found this analysis powerful, don't forget to like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dive stories on modern warfare. Your support keeps us going, and every click helps us uncover the truth behind the battles shaping our world.